feel up there?
I felt great. I felt really good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great debate.
Yeah, I thought it was a passionate debate. One of the things I've been saying, this is a real choice election. You were highlighting she's going to raise taxes, regulations. You talked a lot about things that I've talked a lot about, repatriating money. How much do you think would come back overseas? How many jobs do you think would be created?
Well, at least $2.5 trillion and many, many jobs, but at least $2.5 trillion. And again, she talks. You know, she's been talking for years, but nothing ever gets done. It's all talk. So I think I brought that out pretty well today, actually.
30 years she's been there. That was a big point. What about the fact that she said, you pointed out, you said go to her website, she's going to raise $1.2 trillion in taxes?
Well, I get even more of a kick where she says go to my website, learn about how to defeat ISIS.
And buy her book.
Can you imagine this? How to defeat ISIS on a website. And that's not the way to defeat ISIS, believe me. How do you think General George Patton would feel about that? Go to his website. Do you think he'd have a website saying how he's going to defeat the enemy?
There was a moment when the second part of the debate, and they started talking about race, and you brought up that she had used that term super predator. Because she tried to play the race card, which her ads have done. Has that bothered you in the course of this campaign?
She used the word, well, you know, she's taken very dishonest ads. She's a very dishonest person. She took and used the word super predator about young black men. And I think it's a terrible term, and they don't like it. And it's, I mean, people, I guess, maybe they forget, maybe they don't forget. But I did want to bring it up.
What about the issues that also foreign policy? Another big part of this debate tonight. Iran, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and her role.
Look, Sean, you know, and I know she's been a disaster. And as you know, I used your name today because you and I used to argue over the war, before the war.
I thought you forgot.
Before the war started.
You know how many times we had conversations about that?
Numerous times.
And you told me I was wrong. In fairness, for those people that are asking me in the media, you did tell me over and over again I was wrong. And we did have passion, but it was a respectful debate.
And it was respectful, and I understood where you were coming from, but I was against the war. I thought it would destabilize the Middle East. I didn't know it would be managed so badly, in all fairness, and neither did you.
Yeah.
But I really felt that it's something that had to be discussed because I was against the war in Iraq.
Yeah. Let me ask you one last question, if I can, because the whole issue of the birther controversy, there was the Mark Penn memo that came out. There was a Sidney Blumenthal issue. There was a woman that worked in Texas for her, and then she acts like she had nothing to do with it.
The campaign manager, Doyle. No, she had a lot to do with it. You know it, and she knows it, and her campaign knows it, and I think now the world knows it.
Yeah. Last point. At the end of the debate, maybe a sign of desperation, she tried to attack you as sexist. What is your response to that?
Well, I didn't want to say her husband was in the room along with her daughter, who I think is a very nice young lady, and I didn't want to say what I was going to say about what's been going on in their life. So I decided not to say it. I thought it would be very disrespectful to Chelsea and maybe to the family, but she said very bad things about me. I mean, worse than what she said. She's taking these phony ads, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on phony ads, and I think it's a disgrace that she's allowed to.
Last question about her and you and your differences. What do you take out of this debate going into your next debate?
Well, she's never going to make America great again. It's very simple. It's just going to be more talk. You know, she talks like she's going to do childcare. She's going to do this. She's going to do... She's been there for 26 years. For 26 years, none of these things have happened. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to happen? Not going to happen.
Mr. Trump, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. All right, also tonight, I spoke with Donald Trump's son, Don Jr. Take a look. You nervous today?
Listen, obviously, I think I'm more nervous than he is. I mean, it's a big thing. He hasn't been doing this for 50 years like other people. I mean, it's new, and I think he did a great job.
That was one of the things that he brought up tonight. You know, she's been at this for 30 years. That's a long period of time. And
Correct.
One of the things he said is, you didn't get the job done. Things are worse than ever.
And what's going to change? You know, it's always, you get sold this bill of goods, and guess what happens? There's no action. You know, he's going to bring a different perspective there. He's going to have someone who's actually created jobs, try to create jobs for this country,
but, you know,
not just talk about it.
But he also said that about the black community. Every 4 years, they go into the black community, the Democratic Party, give us your votes, but the schools are still awful.
Yep.
Since Obama's been president, 58% increased black Americans that are on food stamps, 20% increased black Americans out of the labor force. That's a big number.
And it's terrible. I mean, when you look at, you know, Democratic rule in these cities, Milwaukee, I think it's 107 years of Democratic rule. You look at Detroit, 57. Look at what's happened in those amount of time. I mean, nothing good has happened. I think it's time for a change. I think it's time to bring some real job creation policies, because if you do that, guess what happens? Everyone wins.
Weren't you surprised as I was that she actually said, I'm going to raise taxes. We're going to redistribute wealth. And I'm like, didn't we just do this for 8 years?
Well, and that's always the solution. But if you look further into her tax plan, it also affects the middle class. It's not just the rich. She tries to make it seem like it's just her billionaire donors that are going to be affected by this, but it's ultimately the middle class that's going to pay for this, and then they're going to spend it frivolously. And that's the biggest thing I think my father brought up. It's not just about revenue. Right? Business isn't just about the amount of money you bring in. It's also what you spend. To actually negotiate some of these deals, to actually not just say, here's the price, Don. Oh, okay, that's great. We should just accept that. No. That's not what we should do. We should be negotiating these prices. We should be making sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck from the American taxpayers. That's what he's going to do.
He did point out something I mentioned a lot on my show, the first president to accumulate more debt than every other president before him combined.
And by the way, there's a point of no return, Sean. This is like if we ran our homes like we run this government, we'd be living on the streets.
No, I'd be sent to jail.
Correct. We'd be in jail. I mean, it just doesn't work. These policies of guys that haven't done it before just doesn't work. It's time for a change.
How about, what do you think about when she takes the cheap shots, when she takes the attacks? Towards the end of the debate, the sexist attack. Yeah. She tried to say your dad was racist in a way, and then he came back, well, you're the one that called people super predators. Well, and by the way, stop and frisk did work in New York.
Of course it did. I mean, I'm sitting right next to Mayor Giuliani. I mean, stop and frisk 100% work. I mean, these are policies. He's not saying that should be everywhere, but in places where you have 4,000 people almost killed in the last 8 years, maybe we have to do something about it. Yeah. Maybe we actually have to stop that vicious cycle and do something about it. So these are things. And by the way, I was actually pretty amazed. He didn't take the cheap shot. When she accused him of all of these things, he didn't take the cheap shot about Bill Clinton and the dozens of people that have come out accusing him of all sorts of stuff. Yeah. You know what? It was almost too easy, and I was actually really happy that, I perhaps would have done it myself, but he was very restrained about it. He didn't want to do it, certainly not in front of his family. But you can't have it both ways, and that's what the politicians always try to have show.
Yeah. Proud of your dad tonight?
I am. It's amazing to watch.
You only got 2 more to sit through, so,
Exactly.
All right, Don Jr., good to see you. Thanks so much for stopping by. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right, joining us now live with reaction, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich is with us. Let's start at the end of the debate. It was a real wide opening, and Donald Trump said, no, I'm not going to take the shot. Surprised probably a lot of people.
Look, I think that may have been the best single moment of the entire debate. Hillary was mean, nasty, personal, knew it was a cheap shot, knew it was coming at the end of the debate, deliberately tried to crowd him. He had a perfect moment there to clobber her. And he looked over at Chelsea and he thought, I'm not going to do it. That may have been the best moment of the whole debate for Donald Trump, because it showed that unlike Hillary Clinton, for whom nothing is too mean or despicable, he actually was willing to set a standard of being decent. And I'm very proud of him. I think, after what she had said about him just then, and knowing his temper, he must have been very tempted, and it took a lot of self-control. And it was 100% the right thing.
I was talking to Don Jr. about this. I don't think I would have shown that restraint. I don't think I could have done that. But, overall, here's an interesting thing. We've got 3 polls out that all have Trump winning. Hill has him up 51-42. Time Magazine, Time.com, 58-42. It was 51-42. And Drudge has him up by like 90%. So, obviously, Drudge's audience pretty supportive of Donald Trump. But I was thinking, even after this debate, they talked a lot about the economy. They talked about race issues. They obviously talked about foreign policy issues, but they really didn't spend a lot of time on emails, on Benghazi, on the Clinton Foundation, on the money she takes from Saudi Arabia, on immigration, on vetting refugees, Obamacare. I thought there's still a lot of debating to go on here.
Well, first of all, I got 2 emails from Callista during the debate saying, why are they not mentioning the foundation? So I'm just reporting on behalf of my wife. But in addition, very interesting side note. Barry Castleman, who you know, great observer in Minnesota, just 10 minutes ago, sent me a poll that's coming out for tomorrow morning in Minnesota. In Minnesota, they are now tied 42-42. If the Republican candidate is tied in Minnesota, the Democrats are on the edge of a catastrophe. And I don't think people realize this yet. This is Trump's great achievement tonight. There were no major mistakes. There were no fumbles. There were no interceptions. He went on the field as the guy who's got the momentum. He did the big issue perfectly. 30 years, no change. 30 years, no change. All talk, no change. Got that out. Jobs was his side, bad trade deals was her side. He got that out. And so again and again, on the things that are the core of his momentum, he got out what he needed to without making a major mistake. She played nitpicking games with him, trying to get him off balance. She had to do one of two things tonight, and she failed at both. She either had to offer a bold vision of change for America to try to convince us that she's the new Hillary. She failed totally. Or she had to discredit him so much that people would say, he just can't be president. The opposite happened. He was totally comfortable up there. He was comfortable with her. He was comfortable with Lester Holt. He looked like a guy who clearly is capable of being president. You may like or dislike some of his policies. He was comfortable with Lester Holt. He looked like a guy who clearly is capable of being president. You may like or dislike some of his policies. You may like or dislike some of his style. But nothing said that he couldn't be president. And that's what their whole campaign has been based on. They had to somehow demonize Donald Trump. Tonight, he overcame that, and people won't fully appreciate it for another few days. This was an enormous historic victory for Trump, precisely because he did the opposite of what you and I want. He didn't go out as a rollout quarterback, throw deep, force touchdown. He just calmly won the game.
I thought that she was very robotic. She admit, I might take just because of my style doesn't mean that I want to put that on him, because he's trying to be the president of the United States, and right. I think he was himself, but he didn't fall into the trap. She was robotic in terms of, I will repeat my memorized lines again and again and again and again. I got it. She did her work, but that doesn't mean our policies, for her to admit she wants to raise taxes, for her to admit she wants more bureaucracy, for her to, go through the litany of things that she wants the government to do. She wants more bureaucracy. For her to, go through the litany of things that she wants the government to do, and Trump pointing out, we just doubled the national debt under one guy. I thought was a pretty profound difference.
When you remember that she was the senator from New York for 8 years, and she didn't understand Giuliani's great achievement of controlling crime. She didn't understand the power of the whole stop and frisk movement. The liberals consistently misstate what happened. It is constitutional. It's one nutcake left-wing judge who rendered a judgment that's never been appealed. That's a function of the current mayor of New York. Crime is going up across the country, 11% increase in the last year. And I thought Trump, I was very proud of him. He stuck with stop and frisk. He stuck with law and order. He didn't allow either Lester Holt or Hillary to get him off balance. And he stuck with the facts. 4,000
By the way,
dead
Lester Holt was wrong on two issues. Yeah, I mean, him saying to Howard Stern, I guess so, is hardly supporting a war, although the media narrative wanted to make it that way. And then on the stop and frisk issue, he was wrong on that, too. It was like he had to debate two people.
A little bit. And I did think there a couple of times Lester was very close to getting into being Hillary's partner.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break. Mr. Gingrich, stay right there. We'll have more with Newt Gingrich right after the break. Also tonight, we've got reaction from Rudy Giuliani, Eric Trump, Reince Priebus, Laura Ingraham, and so many others. Sheriff David Clark as Hannity continues from Hofstra University. We're in Hempstead, Long Island in New York, and we'll continue. 3,000 deleted emails. Back with us with reaction, former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. The other thing I like the speeches that she gave, that she was getting paid $250,000 a shot for, which I thought was an awful lot of money, and she refuses to release the speeches to everybody. What is in those speeches that she doesn't want us to see?
Well, I mean, you know what's in the speeches. Being really sweet and praising all of these big Wall Street institutions that she's now attacking. I mean, it's pretty obvious what those are all about. But again, I want to place a little bit of a different note here. All that stuff's interesting, and all that stuff weakens Hillary. But that's not where the country's voting. The country's voting on, are you prepared to change Washington? Are you prepared to protect my jobs? Are you prepared to do something about trade deals that are terrible? Are you prepared to do something about immigration? I mean, you look at the big things. You know, are you prepared to do something about law and order as we watch city after city have riots? And I think on all of those fronts, at a very substantive level, Hillary Clinton was on the losing side of every one of those historic issues.
I think that's a great
piece
point.
of what came out of tonight.
And raising taxes, more regulation, and I thought Trump was very articulate. Well, let's bring the trillions back and repatriate the money from multinational corporations. They'll build factories, manufacturing centers. On the issue of energy, which came up, we did try alternative energy, and I think as he said, what do you call those, solar panels. Haven't exactly worked out well, but Hillary does want to put coal miners out of work and coal companies out of business, and we could be energy independent in 4 years, and millions of jobs would be created in the meantime.
But there's an example, Sean, where I think you and I would both say there was a clean shot he could have taken, because if he had turned to her and said, how could you tell all the people in the coal industry in America you want to put them out of work? I think that would have sort of brought it together in an emotional way. And there are places like that where if we were scoring him against some abstract college debate thing, you'd score him differently. But scoring him against history, this was a very big win for him. It's a
Hillary's plan. I kept listening to her, especially on her economic plan, talk about, okay, we're going to do more of what Obama did. And by the way, I was thinking Solyndra when she was talking about when he brought up solar panels. We've tried all of these things, tried shovel-ready jobs. He accumulated more debt than 43 other presidents before him combined. Then she gives a whole laundry list of everything that's going to be new in terms of government, and she's going to tax the wealthy. And I'm thinking, okay, all those people are going to leave, and there's not going to be a job left for anybody. Now, here are the facts. The lowest labor participation rate since the 70s. And we've got, the worst recovery since the 40s. Then we've got a doubling of our national debt, 12 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more Americans in poverty. These are drastic. This is a drastic failure.
Well, I think you could call her Secretary of Unemployment, and you'd have a good framework of understanding. Her trade deals kill jobs. Her tax policy kills jobs. Her regulatory policy kills jobs. Her aggressive attitude kills jobs. This is a person who is anti-job creator, anti-business, for bigger and bigger government and more government unions. And that is not a trajectory that's going to get you to a prosperous, full employment America.
Yeah, well said. Wow. Powerful analysis. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. And coming up next, Rudy Giuliani. He'll join us. Also tonight, Eric Trump, Laura Ingraham, Kellyanne Conway, Donald Trump's campaign manager, the chairman of the RNC, Reince Priebus, Sheriff David Clark, and so much more as we continue from Hofstra University. Order at the first presidential debate earlier tonight. I caught up with the former New York City mayor, Rudy Giuliani, in the spin room to get his reaction to tonight's showdown. Take a look. Joining us now, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. All right, so when it comes to stop and frisk, that's an issue you know well. I lived in New York City at the time. I know exactly what was going on.
Well, of course I did. And here's the amazing thing about tonight's debate. We know Hillary Clinton was a failure at foreign policy. I don't have to spend any time on that. My God, look at the world. We know she's a failure in dealing with Islamic terrorism at home. I never heard her say Islamic radical terrorism tonight, right?
Nope.
We're getting attacks, and we're waiting. Where is the next one coming from? I never realized she was as ignorant on economics as she is. How in you know what name,
right?
Is she going to get businesses to stay in this country by taxing them more?
She's saying it. She's like, I'm going to tax everybody more, redistribute the wealth. I'm like, didn't we do that for the last 8 years?
She is going to drive businesses out of America, like Obama has driven businesses out of America. You tax them, you regulate them, they go somewhere else. Then the African-American community and the Hispanic community are, like Donald Trump said, let down by their voting for the Democratic Party. Now let's talk about stop and frisk for a minute. When I came into office, New York City was the crime capital of America. We had had 2 riots in the period before me. We had a year with 2,200 murders. Murder was happening 6 and 7 times a day. I initiated stop and frisk. Stop and frisk is perfectly constitutional. During the time I was in office, murder went down 65%. Michael Bloomberg continued stop and frisk. He got it down 85%.
From where it first was when you took over.
Now, what she's talking about is totally wrong and completely ignorant. Maybe it's because she failed the bar exam. Maybe she doesn't understand Terry versus Ohio. Stop and frisk is perfectly legal. What the court found was that the way it was applied by Michael Bloomberg and Ray Kelly was unconstitutional because there were 600,000 frisks. I only had 100,000. The success rate had come down to a lower percentage. Mine had been 40%. But then the case went up on appeal, and the United States Court of Appeals said the judge was prejudiced and removed the judge from the case. And the reality,
Lester Holt and Hillary were wrong.
Well, once again, Lester Holt did a Candy Crowley.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't know the law either. Stop and frisk is going on in America right now. It's approved by the United States Supreme Court. The decision, go read it, is Terry versus Ohio, written by Chief Justice Earl Warren. The opinion is 8-1. If a police officer has reasonable suspicion that you are committing a crime or about to commit a crime, he has a right to stop you. He has the right to question you, and he has the right to search you to protect himself. If he finds a gun, he can take the gun away from you. That is absolutely constitutional. If you do it too much, if you do it with some kind of racial profiling, of which I was never accused and never did, right? And brought murder down 65%. Well, that could be what is called unconstitutional as applied. But it's not unconstitutional if you do it the right way. And that's what he is talking about, doing it the right way. It was never found unconstitutional when I did it, and I got murder down 65%. Does Chicago need stop and frisk? Well, Sean,
3,000 shot this year.
Well, how about this? During the course of this debate, 2 people have been shot in Chicago. Well, we're talking here at this debate, 2 people have been shot in Chicago. They don't need stop and frisk? Now, Hillary Clinton's ignorance of the law is astounding to me, to say that the judge found it unconstitutional. She doesn't understand the difference between unconstitutional and unconstitutional as applied.
Yeah.
And she also, unless the Holt interfering was outrageous, the judge was removed from the case by the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in a blistering opinion in which they found that the judge ignored numerous pieces of evidence that Michael Bloomberg and Ray Kelly had presented, and they found her to be prejudiced against the police.
Let me ask you the broader question of the debate. There's such defining differences in our time.
Sure. There are 2 big defining differences. Does she really believe we're going to have more businesses in this country by taxing them another 10-20% and laying more regulations on them? Or are we going to have more people in the African American, Hispanic, and poorer communities in America out of work because businesses go abroad, particularly with the ridiculous tax deal, trade deals that she talks about? And secondly, she's been a horrible failure with regard to foreign policy. Iran, Iraq. She's the one who reset the relationship with Putin, not Donald Trump. Well, that did a lot of good. They're in Crimea. They're in the Ukraine. He wants to negotiate with Putin from strength. Let's build up our army. Let's build up our navy. Let's build up our air force. Let's have a modern fleet. Obama is decimating our military forces, and she wants to decimate them even more.
What do you think? You know, there were so many questions coming into the debate. I know you were in some of the debate prep sessions. From what I've read, I hope that's accurate. Were you at some of them, or
all of them? Yeah.
Okay, you're at all of them. But you know, a lot of talk about, well, how should Donald Trump deal with Hillary Clinton? Is that the pitch you wanted?
Well, yes. I think he displayed that he has the temperament to be president of the United States, and I thought it was admirable that he restrained himself at the very end
of the debate
when she made that horrible attack about women, and that woman to make an attack about women. Now that is really phony. Now
she did tee it up for him, and he did say, "I can go there," and he didn't go there.
And he didn't go there, and I admire him for it. But boy, I wouldn't have done it. I'd have gone right for her, and I'd have said,
"I remember your press conference."
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason this phony can't be president of the United States.
Yeah.
This is a woman who takes money from countries that stone women, that don't allow women to drive, that imprison women, that treat women as chattel, and she's taken hundreds of millions from them.
Yeah.
There's also a woman that acted as an attack dog for her husband when he was a dog, and disgraced the presidency by having.
But you're
sex.
glad Donald Trump didn't go there. Maybe a little bit.
I'm glad he didn't, because I think he displayed something to the American people about himself, that he has a heart, because he didn't want to embarrass Chelsea Clinton. But the American people need to know the truth. I mean, when she says she's a feminist, I just laugh my head off.
Yeah.
I mean, I say to myself, boy, if you're going to buy that, then this country's in deep trouble.
Saudi Arabia money says a lot. Women can't drive. They can't go to school. They can't go to work.
How about destroying Monica Lewinsky until Monica Lewinsky produced a dress that had the semen on it? Now, any American executive would be fired for that. Some might be put in jail for it.
He didn't go there, though.
He didn't go there. But the reality is the woman is a phony with regard to feminism. She is a phony with regard to foreign policy. And he also, I thought, went a little easier on the emails. I mean,
he brought him up, though. Why did she delete him?
She belongs under investigation, not on a stage debating for president of the United States. The Democrats can't come up with a better candidate than one who should be indicted for exposing national secrets. Then the Democratic Party's in bad shape.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, great to see you.
Thank you.
And coming up, wow, Dr. Ben Carson, Laura Ingraham, they're next. Plus, later tonight, we're going to also talk to Eric Trump, Kellyanne Conway, Sheriff David Clark, Reince Priebus, and much more. Straight ahead.
To have another 4 years of that kind of experience.
All right, Donald Trump earlier tonight going after Hillary Clinton at the first presidential debate. Joining us now with reaction, former 2016 Republican presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson and the editor-in-chief of the great website, LifeZette, and Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated host, Laura Ingraham. All right, your take, David.
I think tonight Donald Trump probably learned a lot about debating. He never has done a one-on-one debate before. It's a different animal from being up against 8 or 10 other people. And I think in the beginning, he was kind of like his old self. As it went on, I felt like he was responding to stupid questions too often. Like the taxes, that's already been litigated. He's not going to release his taxes. He's already said why. That's not the burning issue on the minds of the American public. Sean, I know you know the same thing. When the issue of cybersecurity was mentioned, that was begging for Donald Trump to say, wait a second. Is this a joke question? Like the woman who had like a private server in some bathroom somewhere that wasn't as secure as Gmail is going to lecture us on cybersecurity. So that having been said, those moments were left on the table, missed opportunities. What you saw tonight was, I think, an image of strength and an adamant defense of the everyman versus yesterday. And policies that didn't work. So she was very polished. Don't get me wrong.
I don't know.
She
memorized her lines well.
She was very polished. She gamed out every response to every question.
Yeah.
She's a good student, and she showed it tonight.
It didn't impress me because he kept going back to that point, though, which is that her record speaks for itself.
Yeah, she has a lot of experience, and it's failure.
Okay,
her experience is
30
failure.
years of failure.
That's a devastating line.
What's your take on the general reaction to the debate?
Are you
Dr.
asking
Carson?
me, Sean?
Can you hear me?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think Donald Trump did a very good job of dispelling a lot of the rumors that have been circulating about him. You know, that he's a wild man, that he can't control his emotions, that he's unfit to be the commander-in-chief. He was very controlled, perhaps too controlled, quite frankly, because there were some real opportunities to come in there and go for the jugular, which he didn't do.
Would you have rather him come back at the end of that debate and say what everybody knew that he was capable of saying? Did you want him to do that?
Well, not on that women's issue. But, you know, certainly when the question of cybersecurity came up and Hillary Clinton was talking about, you know, the Russians and how they were, you know, stealing our secrets, compromising us, and that would have been a perfect opportunity to come back and say, so is that why you had a private server? Is that why you exposed our agents on the field to danger? You know, those kinds of opportunities. But I think he's going to learn a lot from this, which will help him in subsequent debates.
It's interesting. You and Laura are saying this. Look, there's a lot we didn't get to. He did talk about the deleted emails. That's fine. We didn't really talk about Benghazi. We didn't talk about the Clinton Foundation, the money she takes from Saudi Arabia, immigration, vetting refugees. There's a lot still to get to.
Yeah, when she brings up the fact that, well, there are a lot of the little guys, the window fitters that said you didn't pay them.
Yeah.
That's, again, this is a learning experience.
Small ball, though.
But that is such small ball. But that's where he just laughs and says, wait a second. You guys got paid $200 million.
Right.
And what exactly did you build? Oh, wait, nothing. And there are like entire buildings with my name on it.
$250,000 speeches that she won't release that she gave to Wall Street.
So Goldman Sachs, Benghazi, Sean,
absolutely.
the Clinton Foundation, the corruption, and Ben's talked about this, the corruption in D.C., the Clintons are intertwined inextricably with corruption.
Right.
That plays across party lines, Sean. And I think rather than him getting back on his heels on the birther issue or the bankruptcies or what, it has to be prosecuting the case against her and also speaking right to the magnificence of the American
people. It depends what you want to take out of the debate. But there's one thing that I've been saying, and I think this was highlighted. Yeah. There was a lot of highlights of this tonight. The differences. This is a choice election, Dr. Carson. And on the issue, she's admitting she wants to raise taxes. She's admitting she wants to continue what we did the last 8 years that have failed, where we have 12 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, double the national debt, the worst recovery since the 40s. Really? You want to finish that?
He talked a little bit about that. But, I mean, there was just abundant opportunities there, particularly when it comes to regulations. He barely touched on that. And he has said quite publicly before, but not before 80 or 90 or 100 million people, that he's going to look at all of these regulations one by one and get rid of everyone that isn't good for the American people. I think that's a very powerful position to take. Yeah. On the taxes, challenge her on how is raising taxes upon anybody going to improve our economy. Historically, it has not done so. And people will come back and say, yeah, but, Bush cut taxes and we got into a lot of trouble. Well, he also spent an incredible amount of money. It's a combination of the two. And a lot of people don't seem to understand economics. Certainly, some of the things that Hillary was saying tonight would indicate that she's not deep into business. So, those are things that need to be exploited in a big way and made very, very plain to the populace.
Yes. Sean, I think in the next debate you're going to see Trump get off the defensive and go on the offensive more. The more he's forward on the balls of his feet, the better it's going to be for him. Yeah. She was not on the defensive, and Lester helped her out a little bit on that.
There were three big issues where Lester Holt was wrong.
Right.
His question spinning the economy, I'm like, what America are you living in? Then it was about Iraq, and then it was about stop and frisk. He was wrong, and wrong
and
again.
She said stop and frisk was ruled unconstitutional.
Wrong.
False.
That's right.
The district court judge was thrown off the case, and that case is still ongoing.
That's
so that was actually not true.
No, that's a good point. All right, good to see you.
Great to see you, Sean.
I appreciate it. And thank you, Dr. Carson.
Thanks, John.
And coming up, Austin Goolsbee, Monica Crowley coming up next. Also tonight, Eric Trump will join us. Kellyanne Conway and Ryan Streebus join us with debate reaction. Straight ahead.
996-2426 today.
And welcome back to Hannity here with reaction to tonight's big debate. Former Obama economic advisor. He got us into this horrible economic mess. Austin Goolsbee, Fox News contributor Monica Crowley. All right, let's look at the online polls. CBS. The Hill is now 55-39. Trump won the debate. Time was 58-42 when I just checked. Drudge Report. As a matter of fact, every single online poll but the Clinton News Network has Trump winning this debate.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was following social media during the debate and then after the debate.
How did it look on social media?
All of the elites seem to think that Mrs. Clinton won, which is no big surprise.
Yeah, right.
She is the status quo incumbent candidate.
I guess
running
Wall
in a
Street
change
Journal,
election.
NRO guys.
I mean, a lot of the elites say, she had command over her facts and she was very self-possessed and so on. Mm-hmm. Normal average Americans who are responding to these instant online polls, they're giving it to Donald Trump because he was speaking their language.
But by the way, are those the people in Michigan he kept mentioning? Are those the people in Pennsylvania and Ohio he kept mentioning?
And you want to know why? Because he talks to the issues that directly affect their livelihoods, whether it's bad trade deals that have disadvantaged the working and middle classes, Sean, whether it's illegal immigration that has suppressed wages in this country, that has taken jobs away from people who want to work in this country. Right. He speaks directly to those issues that are emotional issues because it affects the ability of American people to put food on the table.
Let me ask Austin this. Austin, let me go to the economic side of this. All right, so the worst recovery since the 40s, lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, 12 million more Americans.
No longer true.
Can I finish?
What was the third one?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
12 million more Americans on food stamps. Remind me fixing this.
No longer
8 million
true.
more in 8 million more in poverty. And
also
so,
no
and he's
longer
doubled
true.
it. And he's doubled.
You're outdated. All your numbers are outdated.
Is it 11 million? Is it 11 million more Americans on food stamps, Austin? I know you eat big, expensive steaks, and you probably have a good life as a professor.
Now we're back on
How many million more Americans? How many more million Americans are on food stamps? How many million more Americans are in poverty, Austin? Because it's millions since Obama's been president. Millions.
Sean, you and
Maybe
I
you don't
are
care.
friends.
You're a rich professor.
No, I got you're the rich one. You still owe me money. But separate from that, you and I are friends. And I have been in your shoes. I've been at debate preps for the primaries, debate preps for the general, and I've had to go out and defend the president like in 2012 when he was not up to the job and he didn't do a great job at the debate. You are friends with Donald Trump. You need to call your man who just got to go through the dunk tank and tell him to get on his game because he was not on it tonight.
All right. Well, okay. So CBS, The Hill, Time Magazine, and
CBS
the Drudge Report
had a
Can I finish?
22-person.
Can I finish?
Yep. But you just said this.
They have it. They had it. That Donald Trump won. So they're all wrong. And Austin Goolsbee, a liberal leftist Democrat that thinks the Obama economy is still good, you think it went to Hillary.
CBS
She wants
had
to
a
raise
focus
taxes.
group of
She wants
undecided
more bureaucracy.
Voters. Sean, you got to just pause. CBS had a group of undecided voters, and 16 to 6, they said
Frank Luntz
Hillary
was predicting for a year Hillary's going to win. Frank Luntz is biased.
There's nothing wrong with admitting that your man did not do a great job tonight, that he came in with a low bar and he banged his head on that bar.
Okay. Monica, is CBS, by the way, CBS is not exactly conservative. Time Magazine, The Hill is not exactly conservative, except for Joe Concha.
I'll tell you why you're seeing those poll numbers tonight. First of all, 70% of the American people believe that the country's on the wrong track, meaning that this is a change election. Mrs. Clinton is the status quo incumbent. Donald Trump is the change agent. More importantly, Donald Trump speaks like a...
It's 1 o'clock.
Okay, overall, big debate night. I thought from just a purely informational entertainment point of view, I thought it was very informative for the American people.
Yes.
Because there's such a big divide between these two candidates.
Well, there's a big divide. And Sean, look, it's just another day for Donald Trump that he's talking about the issues and substance. He does that every single day out in the stump. You see him at the rallies. He gives policy speeches. This was brand spanking new for Hillary Clinton to actually come out in front of America and say, here's what I think about A, B, and C. She had crammed her head full of a lot of stuff, and she wanted to make sure we heard basically every single fact and figure. But I also thought she looked a little bit smug and a little glib at times, which isn't frankly presidential. Donald Trump should really be valued for what happened at the very end of the debate, which is he exercised restraint. And I'm not sure that...
As his campaign manager, did you talk about this ahead of time? A little bit?
I'm not sure that the rest of us could have exercised that kind of restraint. If somebody is attacking you...
I couldn't.
That's right.
I don't think I would have.
There you go. But look, restraint is a virtue, and it certainly is a presidential virtue. The idea that it would have been so easy if somebody's talking about mistreating women, it would have been so easy.
By the way, that's what they call a softball. That was sitting there on a tee to hit out of the park. He didn't want to do it.
He grabbed it, and then he explained himself. He said, I was prepared, or I could have done some really rough stuff to you.
Were you surprised I was? She wants to raise taxes. She wants to redistribute the wealth.
Very proud of it. Yeah. And Sean, this is really the nut of these presidential debates. What is the worldview of these two people? What is their view of the government in our lives? This is so easy. She's for bigger government, more regulations, higher taxes. She didn't deny any of it. She's very proud of her
doubled down on
trade. She doubled down on it. He's got this tremendous middle-class tax relief plan, create 25 million jobs, renegotiate trade deals, because he is a free trader, but he's also a fair trader, meaning let's make them work better for America, her allies, and her people. He also was able to talk about defeating radical Islam. She won't even call it that. He told her, you and President Obama left a vacuum when you came out of Iraq, and that allowed for the birth and growth of ISIS. So no denying that. Yep. And the only way she denied things tonight was to go, Like, why am I on the stage with this man? But I thought he showed strength and leadership. And of course, Lester Holt, all these debate moderators have a very tough job. You can only get so many issues covered in 90 minutes. But let's talk about all the things that were not covered. She totally flip-flopped on gay marriage between 2008 when she unsuccessfully ran for president, in 2016 when she is unsuccessfully running for
the money she took from the Saudis, Kuwait, Oman.
How about the emails? He had to raise the emails. He mentioned it as part of his answer to a question, and then it was just, Mrs. Clinton, would you like to mention your email?
Well, he was also wrong on the issue of stop and frisk. Because the judge was removed from the case.
The judge, Shira Shinley, was removed from the case, and this current mayor, decided not to pursue that policy. But Terry versus Ohio is a United States Supreme Court decision that is still on the books. It means reasonable suspicion, stop and frisk is allowed. What happened in New York is the way it was being used was being litigated before that particular judge. I think a lot of people in the media, I've heard them all week saying stop and frisk is unconstitutional. They need to read the Constitution.
You know, when you look at the issues, tax policy, immigration, vetting of refugees, saying radical Islam, Obamacare, energy policy. She wants to put coal miners and coal companies out of business. It's just so vast. I mean, for people, I think maybe that are coming in now to absorb it, maybe it will take 3 debates. What do you think?
It will take 3 debates, but I'll tell you, in between these 3 debates, it is everybody's responsibility to be forcing her, smoking her out on these issues. The idea that the voters only deserve to hear 270 minutes worth of these 2 people who would be president of the United States and leader of the free world is nonsense. So I hope, Sean, that the media and others hold her to account in between these debates, that she's just not, how did she perform in 90 minutes?
I don't trust, but here's the question. There was certainly a list of cheap shots she brought into the debate. How did you feel those went? Like, for example, she tried to play the race card like she has in some of her ads. Donald Trump, excuse me, you're the one that used the term super predator. And I asked him about that, and he said, well, she said it. And the issue of women, he could have gone there. He didn't. He could have mentioned the women in Saudi Arabia, that she's taking money from a country that treats women horribly. And on top of that, the Bill Clinton issue and her enabling aspect, but he didn't want to do it in front of the daughters. Is that going to become fair game if she keeps up that level of attack?
Possibly. It may be yes, possibly. Yeah. But you're absolutely right that she came with these pre-packaged, snarky zingers. Let everybody remember I said this, but if you're Hillary Clinton, they look like pre-packaged, practiced zingers, and they kind of fall flat on their way down. They're kind of limp. Everybody knows she's a very rehearsed person, and she took several days off from the trail to prepare for this, and that's fine. But the question is, are you prepared to be president? You can prepare for a debate the way she did, but are you prepared to be president? I would argue she's unfit to be president. She's unqualified to be president. She put our national security at risk. She left those guys in Benghazi unprotected even after Ambassador Chris Stevens and others begged for more security.
Requests.
Thank you. Even if you missed the first 500 because you deleted those emails, you must have the 100 in there somewhere. She has disrespected our veterans being part of this administration where veterans literally have been dying waiting for care at the VA in a place like Arizona. So there are many things about her record that people knew before tonight and will know long after tonight. I also think that Mr. Trump really connected tonight with the people who need to hear his message most. Those who do say, why did my job go to Mexico or China or to a robot somewhere else?
And he kept talking about Detroit and Ohio and Pennsylvania. Yes. They have been hurt the most.
They've been hurt the most, and that's exactly why we're either up or tied with her in these polls, in these 3 states that President Obama carried handily both times. Beat both McCain and Romney in those states, shown why. His message is just so different, and the messenger is so different. He's basically doing very well in those blue-collar areas. This guy's saying, you know what, maybe I don't need the 4-year college degree, but I'm a welder, I'm a carpenter, I'm a plumber, I'm a factory line. I just want to work and support my family.
That's my old career, Kellyanne.
That's right.
I appreciate
know. God bless you.
Yeah.
That's everyone I grew up with, and I hope they're watching us both tonight. Yes.
Kellyanne, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
And welcome back, Hour 2 of Hannity. That was my interview with Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway earlier tonight, right after she walked into the spin room. Now, we've had to move inside because there's, well, you might say some rain outside. Geraldo melts in the rain. He's a Fox News senior correspondent, Geraldo Rivera, and Washington Examiner. I'm sorry. We're 2 good friends. I can say anything. Lisa Booth is with us.
Brown puddle.
And the host of Justice, Judge Jeanine Pirro. All right, so a friend of mine just sent me this. Time Magazine, nearly 1 million votes, 59% Trump. CNBC, nearly 400,000 votes, 60% Trump. The Hill had it 55-39 Trump. My friend Joe Concha sent that to me. Drudge was exploding like 90% Trump. The only people saying no are these idiots over here at CNN.
CNN, right.
No,
but, you know, think about it.
Van Jones, Dave Axelrod, and Paul Begala. The biggest 3 liberal hacks in America, for crying out loud.
Sure.
They make Geraldo look like me, a right-winger.
I'm the man in the middle.
Think about, look, what did she have to prove? She had to prove she was likable. And he had to prove that he wasn't a lunatic. And in the end, he proved that he was pretty solid. He knew what that he could get through an argument with her. And she was scripted. She wasn't any more likable. And she was arrogant at the end.
You know, it's funny because I was watching her. She's so robotic. She's so plastic. She came in with her prepared little words and lines. Even at the end, I was surprised. Because I know Donald Trump pretty well.
That he didn't go after her at the end?
He could have hit her so hard that everybody in that audience would have gone, ooh.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
And he didn't.
He did not.
Was that right or wrong?
That's not for me to judge whether or not he should have. I know that he did not.
That's why you're here.
Let's backtrack this a little bit to where Hillary Clinton was going to go out there and vomit and pee in her pants and faint, and her legs were so wobbly she couldn't possibly endure 90 minutes.
Who said she was going to vomit and pee in her pants?
The stories that I saw leading up to this made Hillary Clinton seem like she was physically a basket case. The fact is, she stood toe-to-toe with the person I think is the most charismatic movie star debater in this country, and she matched him at least evenly. I hear these unscientific surveys. I'll tell you what I saw. I saw it right down the middle. He could have knocked her out. He
left some stuff on the table. I'll agree with you.
Where was Benghazi? Where was the wall? Where was the Clinton Foundation? Where was
Saudi Arabia's treatment of women?
All of the arrows in his quiver remained in his quiver, it seemed to me, and he was on the defensive more than he was on the offense.
But those questions weren't asked. She wasn't asked about her email. She wasn't asked about Benghazi. She wasn't asked about the Clinton Foundation. But Donald Trump should have directed those questions at her.
But by the way, Lester Holt was doing a pretty good job as her, flanker debater in this thing, getting everything wrong that he talked about.
But Sean, I think where we're seeing some of those polls reflect a win for Donald Trump, it's the same thing we saw during the Republican primary debates as well as in the commander-in-chief forum. And I think it's because the chattering class are all the political consultants, and the people that are viewing the race don't operate in that world. And Donald Trump speaks in a plain spoken language, and Hillary Clinton speaks like a politician.
And she came in, she memorized her lines with perfection. That's what I mean by robotic. I feel she's scripted, robotic. Even the lines, I memorized everything you said. And I'm sitting there saying, it didn't impress me. What impressed me is when he talked about Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and jobs going overseas and a record debt and deficit and her being wrong on Iran and NAFTA and everything else. I thought that was more powerful.
But he spoke in a language that Americans understood.
Great.
And he said, you know what? You do have the experience. I concede you have the experience, but it's bad experience.
30 years. What did you do?
America gets it. And, when she starts with, you know what? I have been working on criminal justice reform since the first day of this campaign. Well, what were you doing as Secretary of State, as United States Senator?
She was
what about the super
Did you notice that? She didn't seem moved at all when Trump was going, 3,000 people shot in Chicago. 3,000.
I think that law and order was one of his strong suits. I really do. Yeah. But you say that he speaks in language that America understands. America understands. Why don't you release your income tax return?
America doesn't care. America doesn't care.
Maybe America doesn't care. But the point that he is not releasing his taxes, the whole birther
the fact that she
baloney,
33,000 deleted emails.
Classified. How many were
I think that if you spin this into a Trump victory as the Drudge
what's
the
important?
Hill, Time Magazine, CBS, and CNBC.
And Sean,
this is an enthusiasm.
But the enthusiasm is for change in the country. You look at the CBS battleground polling. 55% of Americans want big changes to the economy, to politics. You look at Quinnipiac polls that have asked the question of, do you want radical change? 70% of voters in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Florida want radical change. This is a change election, and Hillary Clinton absolutely represents the status quo.
72% of Americans think that the country is going in the wrong direction. And she is the wrong direction.
I think what
Right
happened
there is
tonight
the
was the
context.
Democrats now see their candidate as an appropriate candidate, and the Republicans see their candidate as an appropriate candidate, and the race comes
All right,
down
so
to the
then if
3
that's
or
your
4%
take,
in the middle.
you have been riding this razor's edge this
and
entire
I'm still
campaign.
there. And I'm still
for crying
there.
out loud.
I'm still there. And I hated that he brought you into it. I really do.
Why?
Because I love you, and I don't want you to be fodder for the people who are going to chop you up.
Listen, you know what I do for a living? I dish it out 4 hours a day, Geraldo. I'll take any shot anybody wants to take. But here's the thing.
He's using you as his alibi? Come on.
Well, but I will tell you that. Well, it's not an alibi. He would call me. We used to have knockdown, drag-out, friendly battles over Iraq. He thinking I was wrong.
And Sean, speaking of, I think the problem with Hillary Clinton, and we saw that we saw this even at the Democratic National Convention in her speech, and just when she gives her town hall speeches as well, is the fact that Hillary Clinton, she's so wired as a politician, she doesn't stand for anything. She didn't stand for anything tonight because she was so methodical about answering questions.
You've been here 30 years.
Yes.
What have you done?
Yep.
What have you done?
Very
Why are you
effective.
talking about this now? You haven't fixed a thing.
Exactly. Well, and that's the problem. That goes back to the changes that Americans want, whether you look at the CBS poll or the Quinnipiac poll.
He
in the
was,
fact that
he
Americans
was
want
on
change.
defensive. You're a fighter. You do the mixed martial arts.
Right.
You know the difference between a guy who's coming and a guy who's doing this.
There were
he
a
was
couple of
way
times.
too much. He's a great counterpuncher.
I would agree with that.
He was on the defensive 3/4 of the time.
No.
Mitt Romney won the first debate, and then he fizzled the next two.
Well,
We've got two more
you're
debates.
making my case. He lost round 1. Maybe he wins round 2 and 3.
You just
but
got
he
done
lost
saying
round
it's
one.
even.
Well, he lost because he didn't win.
You make
He
up
had
that. You
he
sound
had
like Hillary.
He's flip-flopping more than Hillary.
He had the chance for a real knockout.
Oh, so you
If he
now,
won,
you
if
think
he
it's
won-
And then everyone
right.
would have said if he had that
gotta
knockout,
take
they
a
would
break.
have said he was mean
If
to
you
a
had to-
woman.
Yeah,
That's
he's
true.
not
That
going to
was
win
the
in the
case.
eyes of the media.
All right, I got a question. You have to vote right now. You're in the booth. Who are you going to vote?
I tell you, I am not going to do what you did. I am in the middle. I'm senior correspondent. I'm staying.
Are you going to tell
I'll
us
tell you the day before the election.
on this show?
On this show, I will break the news on my brother's.
You have to hold him to it.
Oh, I'm holding him to it.
Yeah.
Trust me. If I have to drag him out of his office,
Drive him to the voting
he's
booth.
got a full bar in his office.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, coming up, Eric Trump, Reince Priebus, Larry Elder, Sheriff David Clark is here. They all have reaction to tonight's big debate as Hannity continues live from Hofstra University. We're in Long Island, Hempstead, New York, and we'll continue.
You look at the Middle East, it's a total mess. Under your direction to a large extent. But you look at the Middle East, you started the Iran deal. That's another beauty where you have a country that was ready to fall. I mean, they were doing so badly. They were choking on the sanctions, and now they're going to be actually probably a major power at some point pretty soon, the way they're going. When ISIS formed, in this vacuum created by Barack Obama and Secretary Clinton, and believe me, you were the ones that took out the troops. Not only that, you named the day. They couldn't believe it. They sat back probably and said, I can't believe it. They said, no, wait a minute.
We've covered
when they formed, this is something that never should have happened. It should have never happened. Now, you're talking about taking out ISIS, but you were there and you were Secretary of State when it was a little infant. Now it's in over 30 countries. And you're going to stop them? I don't think so.
That was just one of the many big moments for Donald Trump at tonight's first presidential debate. Earlier tonight, after the candidate stepped off the stage, I spoke with his son, Eric Trump. Let's take a look. Who's more nervous, you, Don, or your dad?
Oh, definitely me. Honestly, I was a wreck. I think sometimes the family's actually more nervous than the candidate. My father was totally cool. He was great all day. We were laughing today. Yeah. And honestly, for me, sitting in the front row, knowing that's out of your control, like you want to just protect, and it's because you love your family, you love your father. And I was proud of him, honestly. See him up on that stage. He's accomplished so much in the last 14 months. I was so proud of him tonight.
He didn't take anything. One of the things I think people were thinking coming into the debate, what's his temperament going to be like? Kept his cool, was still Donald Trump.
It's so respectful. Honestly, that's what I was most proud of. You saw the last question.
Last part of the debate.
He's talking about, him calling women names, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And he was so respectful. And I think everybody knows what he could have done, and everybody knows the direction he could have gone in. I was really proud of him. I think he took the high road.
Did you think he was going to do it? Did you know what he was going to do?
No, I didn't know what he was going to do. But I was really proud that he really took the high road. And I think that was a beautiful moment, and actually one that I'll always remember.
One of the things that I think is really becoming clear in this debate is what a choice election this is, Eric. Yeah.
She wants to raise taxes. He's going to cut taxes, repatriate money, energy, Obamacare, foreign policy, labeling radical Islam, building a wall, not building a wall, vetting refugees, not vetting refugees. This is the single biggest choice election that I can think of since Reagan-Carter.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting when she talks about taxes. My father wants to drop taxes for every single American. We are losing our jobs like you wouldn't believe. We have 100 million Americans out of the workforce. Median income hasn't increased in 15 years. It's been stagnant, yet everybody's expenses have gone up. I mean, people haven't gotten a raise in this country in 15 years. I mean, we've lost 1/3 of every manufacturing job, Sean. You know these statistics better than I do. I mean, we don't make anything
all the time
in this country anymore. My father wants to reduce taxes for every single American. He wants to bring industry back to the United States. He wants to get people back in
that money.
Of course, he wants to get people back in the workforce. He wants the American dream to be alive and well. The Democrats are absolutely killing that. They're choking America. They're choking the workforce of this country that's made America great, and it's got to stop.
All right, Eric, good to see you. Appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks so much. All right, here now with more reaction to tonight's big debate are Salem nationally radio talk show host, syndicated host Larry Elder, and Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. All right, when the law and order portion of this debate came up tonight, Donald Trump kept saying, this year alone, 3,000 people shot in Chicago. Since Obama's been president, almost 4,000 dead. It's like it just went right over her head. She didn't seem to understand the magnitude of that.
She doesn't, because she's so far detached from life in the American ghetto that she doesn't get it. I mean, this year alone, over 500 people murdered in the city of Chicago. A comparative statistic.
This year alone?
This year alone. Yeah. First 8 months
Since Obama's
of the year.
been president, almost 4,000.
Since 2013, the start of his second term, 275 coalition forces killed in Afghanistan. So 500 people murdered in Chicago.
Almost twice as many.
People on the battlefield. The other thing that struck me was when Lester Holt asked her about are cops inherently racist, and she jumps to this implicit bias test. That is faulty science. Within the field of social sciences and psychology, people are questioning the validity, the reliability of that test, that everybody's racist. So, you know, she just throws this stuff out there, that knowing that most of the people who are watching tonight don't know that this implicit bias test is faulty. So I look at that, and then I look at this thing with, you know, law and order, and you know, right away she jumps to the criminals, and there's a racist criminal justice system. Never says anything about victims of crime. Never. And that bothers the heck out of me.
Yeah, what was your reaction to that, Larry?
Well, I felt the same way. I thought the victims of crime certainly should have come up. In the 100 largest cities, 25 of them have seen an increase in murder, including Baltimore, including St. Louis, including Chicago. And as far as I'm concerned, Donald Trump should have talked about the fact that this demonization of police officers is getting cops to pull back, and the victims of that are the same black people that she claims she cares about. But I want to make a quick broader point, Sean. I saw a whole lot of unused ammo at the end of this debate. Illegal immigration doesn't come up. Obamacare doesn't come up. And the birther thing, he didn't make it clear that it was Sidney Blumenthal who went to the reporter and said, Obama is from Kenya, check it out. I don't think people understood what he was saying.
Or the Mark Penn memo. I mean, Mark Penn was very clear. Oh, we're going to be the American campaign.
But Sean, he said, Trump did, that I'm the one who got Obama to turn over the birth certificate, and Sidney Blumenthal couldn't do that. That's not what Blumenthal was doing. Blumenthal was pushing the rumor that Obama was from Kenya, and I don't think most Americans who are watching the debate, who aren't on top of this the way you are and the way the sheriff is, didn't get that. She started it. Her water boy, Sidney Blumenthal,
you're right about this too.
This.
They didn't bring up the emails. They didn't bring up Benghazi. They didn't bring up the Clinton Foundation or Saudi Arabia or immigration or vetting of refugees and really dig Obamacare or dig deep into those things. So I think there's a lot of ground yet to cover. But with that said, I mean, I'll give you the list of polls now. You've got, let's see if I can pull it up here. I have it in front of me. You know, Time Magazine, Drudge Report, CNBC, The Hill, CBS. The only one that has Hillary winning is CNN, and they're the Clinton News Network anyway. I mean, and they only had like 500 people they surveyed. These other ones have hundreds of thousands, if not millions.
I have never seen an opponent more target-rich than Hillary. That's all I'm saying. My goodness, he could have nailed her on so many things, and getting her, and she gets away with this nonsense that the reason Obama bugged out of Iraq is because George W. Bush had a timetable that he had to adhere to. Are you kidding me? She went in with a ski mask and she went into the bank and robbed it.
Well, she's not exactly honest and truthful, but she can't run. It's interesting. She wants to double down on Obama's economy. She kind of justifies Iran and Iraq and this vote. She sent these guys to war. We lost 5,000 people, blood, treasure, sweat, tears. These guys lost their limbs. They come back disfigured. And then she says, oops, sorry, mistake. And then she's saying, well, you said on Howard Stern, I guess so. I mean, that's their best argument?
Well, I'll tell you what I think about Donald Trump's appearance tonight in the debate. He shows that he's a fighter, and he's going to fight for the American people. But I'm going to touch quickly on the stop, question, and frisk that she lied about, said it was ineffective. Look, Heather McDonald, criminologist, Manhattan Institute, estimates that over 10,000 black males are alive today in New York City alone because of stop, question, and frisk. So she just throws out there that it was ineffective. All she does is just make stuff up as she goes along, knowing nobody's going to call her on it.
Well, Rudy Giuliani was extraordinarily animated when I got a chance to interview him right after the debate, because I lived in the city at that time. I saw the shift, and if you look at the lives that were saved, probably a large majority were black Americans. Just like in Chicago, of the nearly 4,000 that have been killed since Obama's president, over 75% black Americans. And to bring stop and frisk to Chicago, how many lives can we save?
A lot.
Precious lives.
A lot. Look at this, 80%, murders dropped 80% during stop, question, and frisk under Giuliani and Bill Bratton. And all classes of felonies decreased 75%. Nobody else across the country experienced that because they weren't doing it like New York was. So it was very effective.
You doing that in Milwaukee?
People alive. Yes.
Okay.
We need to do more of it, though. We don't have the officers to do it effectively, but
you're trying.
Yes.
All right. Good to see you both. Sheriff, thank you. Larry, good to see you. Coming up, RNC Chairman Reince Priebus. He's here with reaction to tonight's debate. Plus, we'll get analysis from Dinesh D'Souza, Charles Hurt, Pat Caddell, that and more as we continue live from Hofstra University. It's Hannity. We're on the road. Straight ahead.
Feeling that by the end of this evening, I'm going to be blamed for everything that's ever happened.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, why not?
And welcome back to Hannity. We're in the spin room. We're at Hofstra University, and earlier, RNC Chairman Reince Priebus joined me with reaction to tonight's big debate. Let's take a look. All right, joining us now is Reince Priebus in the spin room and chairman of the RNC. Overall picture, who won the debate?
I thought it was a great night for Donald Trump. And, he did exactly what he needed to do. Presidential, measured, even restrained. And I thought that was a good thing. I think it's
like that, especially at the end of the debate. He was very clear. I can go there.
Right, but I think what he's saying, too, is I'm not putting these kinds of things in my advertisement.
There's your guy right there. He's saying how great you did.
Thank you.
By the way, you got 92% on Drudge.
92%. How did you do tonight?
Not bad.
How's he doing? Good?
He's doing really well. He's a good advocate for you.
We're going to make him a superstar if we win.
I think you're right.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Here you go. You never know what's going to... No, we're not. No, that's all staying. But so, one of the things that really stood out to me, all right, she's going to raise taxes. She wants more regulation, tax the rich. It's just that old liberal cliche on everything. And I'm thinking, okay, we just did this for 8 years. Here are the numbers. I talk about them every day. Worst recovery since the 40s, lowest labor participation since the 70s. We doubled our national debt. We've got African Americans disproportionately impacted. You got 12 million more Americans on food stamps and 8 million more in poverty. Well, those are not good numbers.
But here's what he did very well tonight. Essentially what you're saying, but he did it a little different way. He said, wait a second. You're slinging all these details at me about all the things you're going to do about ISIS, all the things you're going to do with our foreign allies. And you were uniquely situated, like no one else on the face of the earth to actually do it, even as Secretary of State, and you didn't do it. So what makes us think that now that you're trying to dazzle us with these plans, that they're actually going to make a difference? The other thing I thought was interesting, with all the memories that Hillary has about every word and every sentence that came out of Donald Trump's mouth, she remembered them all. But she couldn't remember 39 times when the FBI interviewed her about what she did with her emails, whether she went through training, whether she signed certain forms. Couldn't remember anything.
She couldn't remember even being briefed.
Right.
That's pretty amazing.
Yet she can remember every little snippet interview that Donald Trump ever gave, whether it was to Howard Stern or someone else, remembers it all.
Yeah.
But can't remember a darn thing about when she was Secretary of State, and all of her employers are now pleading the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable.
It was interesting for my name to come up. It's a funny story, and I was telling it earlier that I was surprised I actually remembered it. He had brought it up in another interview not that long ago, but we had friendly knockdown, drag-out telephone conversations over Iraq, and he kept telling me how wrong I was. To this day, I think it was the right thing. The only thing I think we made a mistake on is we pulled out.
Withdraw, yeah.
And we won Mosul, Ramadi, Tikrit, Fallujah, Baghdad, and then we pull out. And we have to ask, why are we sending kids to war if we're going to allow people like her to politicize
And the other big
it?
point that's missed in all of this is that she was regardless of where you're at on this issue, she was the senator that took the vote.
Exactly.
Her finger pressed the green button on the floor of the Senate. And he was a private citizen just talking about issues. Now, I'm not saying that you don't get held accountable.
He said to Howard Stern this, I guess so. I guess so is not a vote for the Iraq war.
I understand. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah. And so she portrays herself to the American people as an expert in foreign policy. But on this issue that she thinks is a big mistake, she made
I remember
the
the first call wasn't even necessarily about the wall. I remember the first thing he said, if you got to fight, take the oil. First thing he said, so he's been consistent on that over the years. Here's the big picture, though. On the Supreme Court, on vetting refugees, on building a wall, on tax policy, she wants higher taxes, he wants lower taxes, he wants to repatriate, on energy, on Obamacare, on saying radical Islam, there's such a distinct difference. This is the biggest choice election, from my perspective, in our lifetime.
Well, and anytime you have a choice election, it's the electorate that measures the risk, how much risk to get the change.
Right.
And it's the same thing that happened around Reagan. How much risk to get the change. And so as people see Donald Trump, like tonight, he pulled back. It's true. He pulled back a few punches. He definitely did. But I think he's also showing the restraint to the American people that he's prepared to be president. I don't need to take every shot there is. I don't need to go, 10 miles deep on this email story. We all know he took a shot on the emails, but he wasn't obsessed with it. And I think that showed the restraint that he needed to tonight.
Reince Priebus, thank you so much. Good to see you. Appreciate it. Thanks. And coming up, Dinesh D'Souza, Charlie Hurt, and Pat Caddell. They'll join us with reaction to tonight's big presidential debate. That and more as we continue live from Hofstra University in West Hempstead, Long Island.
I then spoke to Sean Hannity, which everybody refuses to call Sean Hannity. I had numerous conversations with Sean Hannity at Fox, and Sean Hannity said, and he called me the other day, and I spoke to him about it. He said you were totally against the war because he was for the war.
Why is your judgment better than...
And that was before the war started. Sean Hannity said very strongly to me and other people, he's willing to say, but nobody wants to call him, I was against the war. He said, you used to have fights with me because Sean was in favor of the war. And I understand that side also, not very much because we should have never been there. But nobody called Sean Hannity. If somebody would call up Sean Hannity, this was before the war started, he and I used to have arguments about the war. I said it's a terrible and a stupid thing.
All right, joining us now, the creator and best-selling author of Hillary's America, Dinesh D'Souza, from the Washington Times, Charlie Hurt, and Fox News contributor Pat Caddell. It was a little strange having my name come up, but this is really a true story, is that we argued about this because he'd watched the show, why are you supporting this? This isn't going to turn out well, etc. And from day one, he would say, take the oil, but he was passionate about, I was wrong. Now, I still believe I was right at the end of the day. Well, the mistake was after you win Mosul and Ramadi and Fallujah and Tikrit and Baghdad, you don't pull out because, quote, as Hillary says, we made a mistake after 5,000 Americans died, fought, fled, died, lose their limbs, come back disfigured and say, oops, sorry, mistake, I shouldn't have sent you.
Yeah, and the idea that they put what Donald Trump told a shock jock offhandedly, I guess.
I guess so. Yeah. That's what they're quoting, and they're saying that is like it's gospel truth.
And that the media allows her to do this, to put that on par with the fact that she voted to send all those boys to get their legs blown off in Iraq.
And then politicized it.
And then politicized it.
And then said, oops, I made a mistake.
And then when she later says, oops, I made a mistake, she doubles down on the fact that, oh, but I did all my homework. Well, you did all your homework and you got the wrong answer according to you, or you didn't do your homework.
But he also said it to Neil Cavuto in an interview.
He said it to me.
He said it to you too. You argued with him too.
No, I agree with him.
Right.
No, but he was saying that when he was arguing with you. And I kept arguing with him about the oil. He kept wanting to take the oil.
I agreed, but that's actually something we agreed on.
Well, there you go.
The first time we talked about it, I'll never forget, he said, take the oil, and I said, good idea.
But I know that it was true because he was against it.
Passionate.
And I thought it was a mistake.
Yeah.
But you didn't. But I mean.
Listen, I stand by my position today. It was the right thing to do. But here's the problem, Pat. We can't have 58,000 kids die in Vietnam. We can't have 5,000 kids die in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then Hillary say, as she did, a couple of weeks ago, oops, we got to learn the lesson. If that's my son or daughter, I don't want to learn a lesson from your stupid mistake.
Right. Well,
because you don't have the commitment to follow through on what you voted on. Let's bring Dinesh in. Dinesh.
Well, Sean, I think on the issue of Iraq and you and Trump, the truth of it is that you're both right. And what I mean by that is that there are decisions that with the benefit of hindsight, we might make differently. But of course, we don't have that benefit at the time. You're operating with limited information, and you have to go with the information you have. So you were right, Sean, at the time. Obviously, looking at it now, we might have made a different kind of call. I thought that Trump won the debate, but he won it on points. He didn't have the knockout I was hoping for. He scored points. He came across as authentic. He dispelled this idea that the left has created about him, that he's some kind of a crazy man who is sort of out of bounds and even being qualified for the presidency. I think he diffused that quite a bit.
What? That might be a bigger win. Yeah, that might be a bigger point than I think you're giving credence to. And this was Newt Gingrich's point earlier tonight, is that there was a false caricature coming into this debate, and that myth was pushed aside, especially at the end of the debate. He could have taken the shot. He didn't do it.
Well, I think what he didn't do is he didn't expose crooked Hillary. He showed incompetent Hillary, but really it's the crookedness that defines the Clintons, and he didn't really go there.
What do you think, Charles?
I would argue that tonight the onus was on Hillary Clinton. She's the one who's tanking in the polls. She's the one that has to change the trajectory of the campaign right now. She failed to do that.
Did you think she was robotic? I memorized my lines. That's
well, not
what I
only
got.
that, but she also memorizes her facial expressions.
Yeah.
There was that one moment where she jiggled her shoulders.
It was weird.
It was very strange.
But by the way, from the beginning, the blinking was so distracting.
Yeah.
Did you see
But
that?
it was all very
I did.
practical.
But can I go to the real point? Because I just finished helping with Breitbart, 900 interviews, just shy of 900 interviews, and it was people who had agreed to be interviewed. It's a real sample. It's not one of these, we have a 15
like CNN, 500 people poll?
500 people with 15-point Democratic margins, 900, and we actually asked some real questions, and here's the point. She won by about 5 points on the debate. People thought she did better than they expected. They thought Trump did about what he was expected, but here's the important point. On the question who would be plausible as president, Trump beat her. By 7 points. By 5 points, 49, 44. But he won the thing he needed. And let me just finish just quickly. And he won, cares about people, strong leader. She won on was best on the issues. And guess what? 95% of the people did not change their mind, just like they don't in debates.
That's
and
what
the people and the people who did, a couple of percent went to
CNBC, when
Trump.
Slate, when CBS and Drudge and all these other polls say he won, did he win?
No, I think the poll says that he did not beat.
I got a break. All right, we got to take a break.
He won where he needed to win.
Coming up, more Hannity right after this. And welcome back to Hannity as we continue live at Hofstra University here with Reaction, Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall, American Conservative Union Chair Matt Schlapp, and Fox News contributor Mercedes. Obviously, Matt married way out of his pay grade.
I just really wanted to be married to a Fox News contributor.
Oh! Well, I wasn't available. Leslie's not available, so I guess...
Hey, it's legal.
Yeah. All right, take on the debate.
Well, I thought Donald Trump had a very strong first 30 minutes. And then when Lester Holt started talking about tax returns further, nothing that has to do with America's prosperity or the new direction in America, I think Donald Trump was just trying to answer too many of those questions directly instead of hitting hard on the emails, hitting hard on the Clinton Foundation. I think there were several missed opportunities for Trump on that.
I think he'll come back on that. I also wanted to hear Saudi Arabia brought up, and her taking money from countries that treat women, abuse gays and lesbians, and abuse Christians and Jews.
What was the tough question she got tonight? Think of it.
I was just reading the Washington Examiner. I think there was 6 follow-up questions from Trump, 0 for her.
That's right. And what was the tough first question she got? 0. So, look, I think if you look at all that, what people like about Donald Trump, and I think people will say tactically, why did he go down? I'll answer everything. But it's one of the things they like about him. You bring something up, he gives you an answer.
Yeah, he does.
And he's proud of his life and his record, and he defends it.
Listen, if Hillary, I don't know what that, they must be breaking down and throwing us out of here. If Hillary wants to, hello, we're here. If Hillary wants to bring up his tax returns, okay, well, release your speeches.
Right.
I want to hear what you said to Wall Street companies that paid you $250,000. Why would you, for an hour's work?
Look.
How much do you get paid for a speech?
We were all watching a very different debate, because let me tell you something. I didn't think, we were talking about this off air, I thought she did better than I expected her to do, to be honest. Wow. I thought Donald was going to be better. This is what I saw. If I was a teacher and there were 2 kids giving the book report, one did their homework and one was prepared, and one wasn't. He was too off the cuff, and you can't do that in a debate.
But that's interesting.
It's not a campaign stuff.
When Slate, CBS, CNBC, Time and Drudge all say he won by
excuse me. Where? I can show you. 62% CNN's poll.
All right, CNN's poll had 500 respondents, by the way. These had hundreds of thousands of respondents, and CNN is the Clinton News Network, okay?
Oh, I see.
So the one poll you can cite, that's fair. But he won all the other ones. And those are real people needing real jobs that don't want the robotic, memorize my answers.
I want to look at all the polls tomorrow, because the online polls, I don't trust them.
Leslie, you know what worked? Look, she's been a politician for 30 years, and what solutions has she brought? And the fact that
that was powerful.
That was so powerful, and that is that change agent of change.
Mercedes,
I think really works for Donald Trump.
When President
it was
Obama
talking about the economy and trade, Hillary Clinton could not defend herself.
When President Obama debated Mitt Romney, I'm a Democrat who supported President Obama. However, I was okay to say the first time he didn't win. Mitt Romney kicked his butt.
But there's something you're not understanding here, because people said the same thing in the debates with the Republicans.
That's exactly right.
And Donald Trump won every online poll, and they missed it.
Why is it? Because what he did, certainly in the first 30 minutes for sure, and throughout it, is he said, it's all talk, it's all spin, nothing ever happens. They tell you they're going to fix it.
Action.
And what's the #1 issue in every single poll? Jobs and the economy. And he answered that question over and over and over.
And she said she's going to raise taxes. Great, but raise taxes.
This is my problem as a voter, okay? I put on Twitter, and a lot of people responded, I want $1 for every time he said I. And that's what he said was I. And as a president, we want to hear about us.
Okay, he's talking about we are going to lower taxes. We are going to bring jobs back. We're going to bring. We're going to
make America great again.
We're going to make America great again.
That's right.
You missed it. You don't understand Trump. You don't get him.
In the bubble,
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
In the bubble.
You like the robot. All right, I'll exit as Hillary. I studied my lines more Hannity after the break. I have one more. And Donald Trump is sexist.
Do the smile.
And blink a lot. You gotta blink a lot. She blinked a lot.
He sniffed a lot. That means he's dying.
We'll continue straight ahead. All right, welcome back to Hannity. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left this evening. As always, thank you for being with us. We're live in Hofstra in Hempstead, New York. The first presidential debate is now in the books. We'll have more analysis tomorrow night, back at our normal time, 10 Eastern. Thanks for being with us. Hope you have a great night. Herman Cain, Laura Ingraham tomorrow night, Newt Gingrich, and more. Thanks for being with us.